My name's Henry Kaminski, also known as the Brand Doctor, and I'm super pumped for you to catch me on the next Jesse T Show.
Henry, what's going on, brother?
Dude, Jess, I am so pumped to be here, man. I love your energy, first and foremost. And I'm looking to have a great conversation with you today.
Same on all the above, brother. I mean, you're energetic, you're intense in a great way, and I'm excited to hear more about you. So tell the audience a little about who you are and what brought you to today.
Yeah, so let's go back. It's going to be 15 years. My God. So I started off as a freelance graphic designer 15 years ago. I was doing nightclub flyers for all the clubs in Jersey and New Jersey and New York and Connecticut. And I grew that business into a multi-million-dollar branding agency. Now we have 13 team members, and we work with personality brands. So we work for coaches, consultants, speakers, authors, folks that want to monetize their expertise. This is something that I've been grateful and blessed to achieve on my own. And now I help other personality brands like myself do the same thing through brand strategy, brand development, brand identity design, and all that weaved into sales and marketing strategy and funnels. You know, a lot of people know me as the funnel guy. So being able to weave in all of my expertise in branding with the sales and marketing funnel game has been a huge success for my clients. And so I'm here to talk shop and help your audience today from anywhere from personal branding all the way to how do I leverage the internet to generate revenue?
Yeah, let's start there. Let's start with leveraging the internet to generate revenue. So just from the lens of, you can go archetypal, specific types of, like you said, coaches, clients, authors, or just any budding entrepreneur. A lot of their questions stem around, how do I make money? How do I make money using the internet as an asset? Do I do email sequences? Do I do this, X, Y, Z? Talk a little bit about the mindset, the strategy behind that, and then how people can actually make money using the internet.
Yeah, so I'll share some stories with you, because I think the best way people learn is through story. So let's go back. I'm 5 years into my business, and the business is tanking miserably, and I don't know what to do. I'm getting resentful to my clients because I don't want to do that work anymore. I was probably 31 years old. And I remember I was putting in those 20-hour days. And I remember taking a break, walking into my kitchen, grabbing a bite to eat and going, am I going to be designing nightclub flyers when I'm 40 and 50 years old? I sure as hell hope not. And it was that moment that I said, I need to get out of this rat race, because that industry was getting extremely competitive. And we were nickel and dimed for like $25 a job back then.
Wow.
So it was starting to get really bad, right? And so I said, I have to find my way out. But what was happening was a couple of things. One, I wasn't financially intelligent back then. And I would spend every dollar I made. And that was a big problem. So I couldn't afford not to work. So I had to take these jobs. Otherwise, I could keep my lights on, and I couldn't maintain or sustain the lifestyle that I was living.
Right.
Anybody looking at me back then, they were like, who's got it better than Henry? But I was miserable inside. Miserable. And so I finally sought help after I was down to my last $2,500. And I think at that point I had even expended that, and I was negative in the bank account.
Real quick, were you did you have a family? Did you have a mortgage? Like, did you have real huge responsibilities outside the business? Yeah.
Yep. So recently married. I was married about a year, a little less. Just bought a brand new townhome with my wife, and I thought that everything was going to be just fine. And until I realized that I wasn't doing work that was fulfilling anymore. I started that self-sabotage journey. Like, I'm just going to be a prick to everybody. I'm going to be short-tempered. I'm going to push as many people away personally and professionally as I can. And hopefully it all goes away.
Wow.
Right. And eventually I had to break the news to my wife that I was broke and the business was broke. And I didn't know what to do. I really didn't know what to do at that point. And, my girlfriend, wife now, was with me when I made my first buck. You know what I mean? So she saw the life prior to me achieving any sort of success.
Ride or die.
Yeah. You want to call her ride or die. That's exactly. And she's still here today, 14 years later.
Oh yeah.
And she said, listen, you need help. I'm going to help you find help, and you're going to get back at it. And so
what did that look like?
Yeah. So I was searching the internet for digital marketing help.
Yeah.
Right. And I came across Digital Marketer, the company Digital Marketer. And they had this promo at the time where it was $1 for their Facebook group, like community. Mm-hmm. I was like, hell, I have $1. I'll take a shot at my, right. So I get into this group and everybody started talking about funnels and marketing and this and that and upsells, downsells. I didn't know what any of that language was. And I learned about ClickFunnels. And ClickFunnels, for those folks that don't know, is a software people use to build landing pages that are optimized to generate leads and optimized to sell a product or service.
Yep.
Bottom line, right? And so I started digging in that ClickFunnels realm, learned about Russell Brunson, started listening to his podcast, and said, I got to learn more about this Inner Circle program. It's something that it's this coaching program. So I go through his funnel and I get on the phone with a salesperson, and they're like, it's $25,000 to get into this thing. Ooh. And that last thing I spent that kind of money on was my wedding, because in New Jersey, it's like, you're not getting anything under 50 grand for a wedding. Damn. So I was like, there's no way I can't afford this. And they said, well, there's this $10,000 program. It's very similar. Maybe you want to come into that. So I had good credit and I had a credit card. And I said, it's not if this works, it's when this works. I'm going to double down on me. I'm going to bet on myself here, and I'm going to get out of this mess one way or another.
Wow.
So I gave him 5 G's up front, and then I had to pay off the other 5. Get on a call with Russell, and Russell says to me, well, 20 minutes into the conversation, we're both hysterical crying because I'm telling him my whole life story, and it's resonating with him. He's getting emotional. And he said, Henry, there's one thing you're missing. I'm looking at your website now, and it's not the website you see today. I had just spent my last 26 grand on this website redesign.
Wow.
Right. So I wasn't afraid to spend money, but I was spending money on the wrong things.
Yes.
And he said, Henry, beautiful website. I mean, it's stunning, but there's one thing missing. And I said, what? He said, you have this big bubbly personality, and you're nowhere to be found on the website. So you're just another design company. So what are you competing for? Just another pretty design. He said, I would challenge you to get out there and start putting your story out there and start getting out in front of people, because that's why people are hiring you.
Yep. Because of you.
And yeah, because of me.
Yep.
And so I said, I never thought of it that way. And he said, by the way, I'm coming out with a book and I need some design work done. Could you help me? I said, yeah. He said, how much do you charge? And I said, I don't know. Let me get back to you on Monday. It was a Friday. Yeah. I hit him back on Monday. I go, in my head, I'm going, I owe this guy $5 grand. I got to marry. I said, how's $6 grand? He said, done. So so we worked together there. And then I went away for a couple of months as I was still getting coached by him, making all the mistakes an entrepreneur can make.
Yeah.
And finally I started drinking my own Kool-Aid. And I was listening to his podcast and I said, I got to do something about his podcast cover, man. His podcast cover just sucks. And as a designer, I was like, I got to fix it because there's so much value that comes out of this podcast. It's not being represented properly from an aesthetic. Right. So I put together this podcast design for him and I sent it to him, not thinking anything of it. And he got back to me like a day later. He was like, oh my God, so cool. Awesome. Thanks. Didn't do anything with it. So about 2 months goes by, Jess, and he comes back and he says, hey, by the way, do you still have those podcast cover designs? I says, yeah. He says, all right, we're doing some changes over here. We want to use them. I said, all right. So I had to resize some stuff. I gave it to him. The next day, I'll never forget, it was Thanksgiving morning. He hits me up on Messenger and he says, hey, we're looking to do some real solid brand identity for ClickFunnels. And I would love your help. I mean, this is going to be long-term. Like we really need to establish ourselves here. I'm working with 6 designers right now. They're coming back with 6 different looks of the business. He's like, it's frustrating. And so I said, all right, let's do it. So for the next 2.5 years, I helped them brand ClickFunnels. And eventually I gave him all the assets and he had his in-house people. He was really starting to form the business and brought in some in-house people to carry the wand. 6 months later, they hit 100 million.
Damn.
And so
how long ago was this when you started working with Russell and his team?
I would say it's about 4.5 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, it was about 4.5 years ago. And then to this day, we still have a great relationship. And just loving what he's doing and how he's maturing and how ClickFunnels is still around and how they're always leveling up, the bar. And I have ClickFunnels heavily embedded into my business, for obvious reasons. There's the relationship. And that's something that we could talk about today, because I think a lot of times that term personal branding gets thrown around a lot.
Yes.
People snicker when they hear, I'm a personal branding coach. It sounds so silly.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's creating great relationships. It's looking at your expertise and asking yourself, how can I take this expertise and help people get what they want?
Yep.
And are they willing to pay a premium for it?
Right. Yeah. And you made a really life-changing decision, business-changing decision when you double down yourself and you burn the boats. You're like, listen, I got a credit card, I have good credit. I'm going to take this money and I'm going to continue, because there's a lot of points of quitting for any aspect of life, relationships, marriages, businesses, sports. And usually it's the only, in my mind, what I've learned in my life, because I've quit a bunch of shit in my life, but I've learned that the only time you fail is when you quit. Like you can lose a game, you can lose a client, you can lose XYZ, lose a relationship, so to speak.
Yeah.
But as long as you don't give up on the learning process, you don't give up on the mission, and you don't give up on yourself, you haven't actually lost until you quit. And there's some things you need to quit that are beneficial, like maybe drugs or alcohol or bad relationships. But at the end of the day, if you don't quit, and I think that's a very huge piece to where you basically drew a line in the sand. You didn't give up. You had support of your wife, which is amazing in any endeavor, especially business.
Sure.
And so what for you personally, because this will tie into making money and being a revenue generating business and all the things that you do to help people do that, you had to do it for yourself. So what was it, the first aha moment, the first inkling of success? Like what tool was it? What mentality was it? All the above, when you actually started turning it around a little bit and going from $2,500 or less to being broke to actually like starting to get belief back in yourself and starting to see successes.
Yeah. So a couple of things. One was I got true to myself. So when I was starting out, let me take it back a little bit. When I was raised by my father, right, all by himself, had 4 jobs, made sure that he instilled a work ethic in me that was going to last generations, which I love my father for. But I grew up very humble, got my school clothes from Canal Street, Chinatown in Manhattan. So this guy wasn't wearing, Air Force Ones. And, I didn't grow up like that. But I did have a very wealthy uncle who had a lot of flash. And when I would go up and visit, I would get bit by that bug.
Yep.
And so I said, when it comes a day where I could afford this stuff, I will live that lifestyle. And that's what I did. And so what was happening though was I was doing all the right things, but for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
I was showing off. I was trying to impress. I was trying to, meanwhile, like I had everything that I could ever want in my life already inside of me, but I couldn't pull it out of me. I couldn't figure out how to access that because I was working with skeletons in my closet.
Yep.
And went through some traumas in my life, which we don't need to get into today, that kept holding me back.
Yep.
Right. It kept making me second guess myself.
Especially the environment of the Northeast. Like I grew up in Boston. So Boston, New York, Jersey, Philly, it's a very showy, very hustler mentality. Like it's like keeping up with your friends and everybody has no money, but they're putting everything on credit cards or they're robbing Paul to pay Peter kind of thing. It's just the environment, never mind adding trauma and ego to it. And it's like a whole clusterfuck.
Exactly. And so that was the earlier days of my entrepreneur career. And finally I found some good mentorship. And they told me straight up, like when you own yourself is when Pandora's box is going to open for you.
Yeah.
And so I had to get down to the nitty gritty, and my wife is not afraid to remind me of who I was and who she fell in love with. Right. And the stuff didn't matter as much as my happiness.
Yes.
And so that's when I realized, what am I doing this whole thing for? Okay. What am I doing this whole thing for? And there was a few people that I wanted to make proud. I wanted to make my father proud. I wanted to make my wife proud. But again, I kept going about it in this materialistic way.
Yep.
Right. And then I finally said, that's it. I'm done. And you know what? The straw that broke the camel's back really was when my son was born. Because I'll give you the story. Again, not that financially intelligent at the time.
Yeah.
And I had two big projects going on at the same time, but my systems and processes in my business were not airtight at the time. And so those projects started to fall apart. And I had to refund like 40 grand in like a day.
Wow.
Yeah. It was horrific. It was a nightmare. It was a true nightmare. And one of the clients went online and bashed the hell out of me. He actually used the bots, like, the bots that you can get reviews with.
Yes.
He actually turned it negative. So he went to all of my Facebook friends and private messaged them through the bots, saying that I was this scam artist and that I stole money from him, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, I had refunded him already. So it was such a nightmare, dude. And I realized that I would never go through that again. But here was the lesson that I learned. So after they got their money back, I said to myself, this was the universe telling me that you need to get your shit together.
Yes.
You need to build something sustainable. You cannot treat clients this way. You cannot have half-assed processes and systems anymore. Do you want a business or do you want a hobby?
Right.
And I said, I want a business. And so I spent heavily, even though I had to. So here's what I had to do. I had to give up some materialistic things, which with a guy whose ego was bigger than the George Washington Bridge, it was tough to do.
What were some of the things you had to give up?
So I downsized my car.
Yeah.
I sold back 2 Rolex watches that I had bought a year before.
Yep.
And so I had that cash and I poured it back into the business. But I'll never forget the ride home from the jewelry store. So I called my father because I had told him the story, and I said, it didn't sting as much to give those watches back.
How about that?
And he said, are you done? And I said, with what? Because again, I was just so blind. He said, with all of this.
Yeah.
He's like, Henry, I worked 4 fucking jobs to make sure that there was clothes on your back and food on the table. He He said, "What are you going to do when Dante, my son, tells you, Daddy, can you buy some sneakers for me? Like I want those shoes or, and you can't because you don't have the money to buy them." He said, "I didn't do that to you, so don't do it to him."
Fuck. Yeah.
And
Powerful.
that was it. That was it. I started studying how to use your money wisely, and it sounds so elementary, but it was so impactful for me
Oh,
because
yeah.
I didn't know any better. My father was extremely tight with his money. And then I had another family member who was extremely loose with it.
Yep.
So I didn't know what was what, and it I actually had to teach myself how to respect and leverage money.
Yep.
So now I live off of 70% of everything that I earn. And that 30% all gets reinvested into stocks, marketing, other investments. We're open. I'm getting into another industry. I don't want to talk about it just now, but I'm getting into another industry with a partner that is extremely lucrative, and it has a lot of the dots are lining in our favor, and we're gonna make this thing happen. And it just makes me realize that, like, had I not saved, had I not been able to be financially intelligent with my money, I would not have this opportunity today
Yeah.
to do my next phase of life and entrepreneurship. So, sorry, I got a guy here that's screaming for my attention. So once I got my money right, I was able to do a lot more things.
Yep.
And it opened up a lot more opportunities, but I had to learn the hard way.
Yep. That's most entrepreneurs, I think, have to learn trial through fire kind of thing. They have to learn through experiences. And I'm a wealth manager by trade, and I'll be the first person to tell you that 9 out of 10 people don't know how to manage their money unless they're taught, because
Yeah.
it's not taught. It's not our fault. Like we weren't taught in school. We don't have bright, shiny examples of people in front of us that are great with their money. Like you said, it's polarity. It's like people that don't know what they're doing with their money, or people that are really tight with their money, and it's like everything in between. It's like, so what do I do? What do I want? And then there's behavioral and psychological things that go into stuff, maybe self-sabotage, maybe I'm not good enough, maybe pride, ego, all that stuff. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into it, but it sounds like you were able to get aligned.
Yeah. So once I got aligned, I built out my structure, my process, my systems. I built and reinforced my team.
Yep.
I made sure that I was hiring people that were better than me.
Yep.
Right. I replaced myself. That was one of the things that Russell helped me with, was actually replacing myself out of my business. So now I have a project manager, and I have a series of designers that are all specialized in certain things. So we do identity design. So I have an identity designer. So they're in charge of the logos and the social media identity, right? And then I have a website designer who just focuses on website design and functionality. And then I have a funnel team that just focuses in on funnel design and optimization. Yep. I have a copywriter so that does all the copy for everything. So I was doing all of that, and that's almost impossible. Yes, to be able to handle all that. And that's where a few things kind of like just got destroyed, because I was trying to do everything on my own. And it wasn't until I started to delegate and really started to realize the power of leveraging human resources. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I want to talk about today is forget about your funnel, forget about your business. If you don't have the right resources allocated to the right locations, nothing's going to work. It's like having square tires on your bike. It's not going to be a smooth ride, And so, we could talk all day long about how to leverage social media to get clients. But if you don't have an expertise that people are willing and able to pay a premium for, you're going to be a commodity. And that's what was happening in my world as a graphic designer. Fiverr came out, disrupted the industry. Canva came out, disrupted the industry. So how do you figure out how to deliver more value to your clients? And I was just talking to a client recently and I said, buddy, the one thing that's going to differentiate you from everybody else, one, two, what people are willing to always pay a premium for is your thinking.
Yep.
And your expertise. So forget everything else and focus on your craft and focus on strategic thinking, because that's what people will pay a premium for to get them out of any sort of mess or any sort of issue that they're currently in. So, wherever you want to take this conversation, please be my guest.
I want to, we're going to probably have to run back another episode or two, because there's a lot of things I want to talk about, but I want to jump into the mindset shift for you. Did you read the book, or have you heard the book called The E-Myth?
Oh, of course.
It sounds like you're speaking from the book when you're like, I needed to remove myself from the business, not be the bottleneck in my business, put pieces and people and processes into place where you could not, being a business owner seems attractive, or being an entrepreneur seems attractive to the uninitiated. And once you get in there, you realize you own a job. You're like, shit, I just gave myself a job, and it's a job that I have to do a lot of things, and I have to wear all these hats. And you realize, to be effective, even if you're decent at some things, there are people out there that are much better than you at certain things. And that's when you start putting pieces together and putting people around you and surrounding your team and processes. And I just got this immense, innate kind of knowledge or feeling that you had that experience with that book. So it sounded like you actually did that. You took yourself almost out of the business. You put pieces in place to run it. And I do want to talk a little bit about some of these different experiences you had that you now teach people with in terms of social media or branding or funnels. We don't have to get in the weeds now. This could be like, we could have like a technical conversation as we go along. But as far as today, how isn't, like, let's say you have, again, the illustration of a brand new entrepreneur, whatever field they're in, how are they monetizing in some of the things that you teach them in?
Yeah. So there's a couple different ways you could do it. I mean, there's the high ticket route where you could sell a premium, coaching service or a premium product, right? We're talking about, boot camps, you know what I mean? Things like that. Or you can have a subscription model where it's $77 a month and you get access to a community and access to resources and access to, professionals that are vetted and you have access to people's Rolodexes, and there's so many different ways to skin a cat. Let me share with you a couple examples of how I was able to help my clients scale to 7 figures and beyond. So here's a client that came to me who had an awesome podcast, was ranking very high in their country in the UK, and had all this attention, but didn't have anywhere to take them. So it was like, how do we work with you? How do we work with you? He's like, I don't know. So he hears funnels. He hears about the funnel concept and comes to me and says, make me a funnel. But what I realized was his branding and his strategy was so fragmented. No matter what funnel we built for him, it wasn't going to work, because he had 2 very different types of clients he was serving. So it's not like one size fits all.
Right.
So what we realized was we have to create 2 different funnels. We have to create 2 different client profiles that we're going to serve. And we need to know them better than they know themselves, and give them a journey and an experience that's going to make them say, thank God I found this company.
Yep.
And so what we did was we created very strategically these 2 funnels. We created a qualification process. I think it's very important for all of us that are solopreneurs or personality brands. We can't work with everybody.
No, and we shouldn't either.
No. So make sure that you have some sort of process that's going to qualify these people or disqualify themselves. Yes. So you only get the cream of the crop, right? So help them with that. Launched it. Took about 4 months. It wasn't something that we just whipped up. It was about 4 months of intense work. We did the strategy first, where we workshopped. I take them through a process and workshop all of our thinking. And then I take that and say, okay, all this information needs to be distilled into a very defined strategy, and then take that strategy, and then that strategy is going to inform what we need to build.
Okay.
See, what's happening is everybody goes to build.
Yep.
Oh, I could just get a logo on Fiverr, or I could just get somebody to whip up a website for me for $1,500. And oh, I could just find some funnel guy off the internet in the ClickFunnels group and my life is saved.
Yep.
No. If you don't have the thinking to inform what you need to build, you're screwed. You're working backwards. So we did all of that. We launch. 3 weeks later, get a phone call. Did my partner tell you? No. We landed our first $96,000 client through
Wow.
Funnel A.
Wow.
Right. So there was 2 funnels we were working on. Funnel A scored a $96,000 client in 3 weeks.
Wow.
So needless to say, it paid for my services and then some. So he scored and got all of his money back in one client. So that's one way, right? That's a high ticket offer.
What was he marketing or selling to make $96,000 on that one ticket?
Yeah. So this was a year's worth of work. Okay. And his target audience was a six-figure entrepreneur, mid-six-figure entrepreneur that was looking to exit, looking to sell their business and then buy another one.
Okay.
That's this guy's expertise. Okay. Buying and selling businesses. Right. Yep. So the person knew 96 grand is nothing compared to the upside of what my client could have done for him. So $96 was a steal for him. Right. So again, it's about positioning. My client had the expertise. He had the experience. Right. And we were able to position that and leverage that properly, that build trust, build the credibility, built the authority, and then built the user experience for his customer that made his customer say, this is my guy. Right. So that was one client. Another client, 26 years in financial planning, right? Kind of over and done with the one-on-one consulting, wants to do one-to-many, has to take all of his thinking, all of his 26 years of experience and package it digitally. Where do you begin?
Courses.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you don't know how to put one together properly, it's like putting together a really complex Lego, right? Where it could take you hours, or you hire somebody that puts these together for a living, and in 2 hours you got your Mandalorian Lego that would have took me 16 hours to make, but he did it for 3.
And even if you did it in 16 hours versus 3, like what would the quality or level of expertise be compared to someone who's like a wizard at this?
Right. And so what we realized was there was a couple things. One was he was getting ready to pigeonhole himself into a one-track revenue stream.
Yeah. Yep.
Where I told him I would argue that strategy. I think this is great for your advocate client, your top 80%, right? But you want to have something that's next level. That's going to move the needle in revenues, right? So I'm all about helping you put together this subscription model because everybody loves recurring revenue.
For sure.
Yep. But what happens when they graduate that?
Yep. What's next?
Yep. So I said, how's it sound to have 10, $25,000 clients a year with minimal level of work? We're talking 3-4 hours a month per client.
It's a dream. Yeah.
Yeah. And most of your efforts, because he seemed to really love the coaching one-to-many model.
Yep.
And I said, what if the majority of your efforts was in your community, helping these people build their legacies? He goes, that sounds like a dream. I was like, well, let's build it. So we helped him build this really cool. It's a membership program. And there's so much more that comes with it, like than just the step-by-step guide on how to create a will or how to get your will done or how to get your, how to 401k established. Here's a guy that comes into the community twice a month and handles your questions, helps you, guides you, Now it's like the Messiah coming in and like, like anointing everybody. And now his majority of his time is spent creating content that just brings people into his funnel. Right. So I gave him the resources like Monday.com if you need a project management platform, or Basecamp to manage this out. But we're in the process now of really teaching him how to now run this thing on 12 cylinders, because again, he was very fragmented. Everything was just like, there was no SOPs in place, right? To actually create something that was going to run autonomously. And I think as entrepreneurs, especially personality brands, I think we get to a point, especially around the 4-year mark, 5-year mark, where we're saying to ourselves, I can't operate this business this way anymore. I need to systematize this.
Something's got to change.
Yep. Yeah, something's got to change, because again, this is a glorified job. I need 6 more hands to execute now at this level. How do I create a system around this? So that's what we do. And we've been really successful in helping our clients see some really great results where they stay in their lane, do what they do best. And we handle all that technical stuff and all of the aesthetic stuff and the messaging stuff.
I know you said it's 100% situational with client by client basis on their experience, but in terms of the overall, if you had to distill down the amount of clients you've worked with over the years and fine tuning your craft and becoming more efficient at it, where would you say, you have a client comes in, starts working with you, and then they start to see immediate change in the way of maybe processes or even revenue generation they weren't having before working with you? Is there a window? Like you said, the last guy was 4 months. Some people might be right away. Some people might be a year. Is there a window of like usually when start like 2-3 months in up to 6 months, people can start seeing, an impact?
Yeah. So what I tell my clients is if you come into the Brand Accelerator program, that's a 90-day program from soup to nuts. That's strategy. That's basically discovery. So we need to discover the brand and understand it. Then we need to strategize what we've discovered. And then we need to execute on the plan. What are we going to build?
Yep.
Right. That's a 90-day program. Right. But what I have them do while we're building all that out is dig the well before everybody's thirsty. So when we go to launch, everybody's excited. Everybody's anticipating. Everybody's curious. So when people actually follow my direction and do that, they see quicker results. If you don't do anything while you're building, chances are when you go to launch, you're going to hear crickets.
Yeah.
So that's one of the big takeaways I want everybody to think about today is if you're considering rebranding, to talk to your audience about it while it's going on.
Yep. Document. The great Gary Vee is always talking about document the process, tell people what's going on, peel the curtain back and give people something to look forward to.
Yeah. I wouldn't necessarily give away all your trade secrets because you got to have some sort of, especially in this business that I'm getting into, like time is everything and exclusivity is everything.
Sure.
So getting there first, creating that exclusivity is extremely important because it protects you. You know what I mean? You're not going to go to war and give your opponent your game plan, right? But there's ways to go about it. Like you said, you could peel back the curtain and say, "Hey guys, we're reinvesting in our brand identity, and we have some logos that we're going to be creating. Would you mind if we sent you a couple of the concepts to get your feedback?"
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Like a poll on Instagram, like which logo do you like better? Have them vote on it, kind of thing. Yeah.
That's getting your community involved. That's keeping the business real. And because again, I think a lot of times is people look at these business identities as these big monsters that are untouchable or they're so far from any sort of humanization. And I think the more human you could create your business, the better, because I think people are going to buy from people first, then they're going to buy your product or service. especially this millennial, this Gen Z generation, they will pay a premium if they believe in your culture and they believe in your value and your purpose. They will pay the premium because they align with it.
Yep. Yeah, they believe in it. They have more, just kind of, like you said, they align with it. So, you kind of got through, and I know we have just a few minutes before you have to jump off. You kind of got through that burning the ships mentality, that for you personally, that coming to Jesus moment where you're like, I'm all in. When did you see, for you, right around year 5, when that happened for you? When did you start seeing traction, when you got reinvested and you kind of just said, you know what, I'm going to make this happen? How long did it take for you to kind of start generating revenue and start scaling?
Yep. So when I brought Russell Brunson on as a coach, he coached me up, and within 6 months I had generated over $500,000. Wow. This guy, I don't know what his problem is. Sorry guys. This is when you rescue a dog and he's been around for 2 weeks, you're still trying to learn his behavior.
You've only had him for 2 weeks?
He's going on 3 weeks. Yeah. So he's really, we're both learning each other right now.
That's awesome.
So anyway, long story short, it all comes down to execution and action. I think the quicker, and I'm an action taker, so the quicker I was to implement what was being coached to me, the quicker I found results. Right. So that's what I recommend you guys doing is trust who you hire who you trust. And when somebody tells you to do something that has the expertise and the credibility and the experience, do not question them. Don't question them.
Blind faith, trust in the process.
Yeah. Just do it. Just do it. There's a reason why they're telling you to do it in the first place. And if you trust them enough, then there shouldn't be a question. That's why you don't bring on a coach. You don't bring on an expert to help you, or a mentor that you are skeptical over. You got to make sure that you bring somebody on that perhaps is in your industry, but maybe 15 miles ahead of you. Yep. You know what I mean? That could look back and tell you where all the potholes are on the highway. That's who you want to hire. So to that point, Jess, a couple things. One is, I'm telling everybody in every podcast I go on that you really need to form your board of directors for your life.
Yeah.
Not just your business. Because we all know who we surround ourselves with, who our board is going to help us drive to the location that we want to get to.
Yeah.
So there's a few that I tell people. One is, find that business mentor, whether they're in your field or not. If you trust them, bring them on board, because you need business mentorship. Find a mindset coach. One thing that I did when I got out of, one thing that Russell was providing at one point, because I was in his program for 2 years, and the second year he brought this mindset coach in, who happens to be my mindset coach to this day, because we kept working with each other even far after I had left that program. But that mindset coach really, really helps me stay focused. And then you have your, what I call personal trainers in different areas. You need a strength coach, find a strength coach. i.e., you need a social media coach, go find a social media coach.
Yeah.
You need somebody to help you with live streams or podcasts. Go find that podcast guy, right? And find that expert for each pillar that you want to be great at, and just let them coach you.
Yeah.
I wish there was another way. I wish there was, but that's it. So I have my board of directors, about 6 or 7 people, and we meet once a month, and they keep me on rails. And my admin team is who executes it all for me. So if you want something like this for your business, let's have a conversation. Let's see if you're a right fit. Let's see if you're at the maturity level, because that's what it comes down to. You have to be at a certain maturity level to accept all of this. when I first started my business, I wasn't mature enough to take orders from a coach. I had to get my ass kicked a few times for me to finally say, all right, I need a coach.
Welcome in humility.
Exactly. So I have a process for it. It's called the brand assessment. And again, this is for established personality brands that want to scale, that want to take their business to the next level. They may be stuck in maybe mid 6 figures and they're trying to get to 7, and everything's fragmented right now. And they're trying to systemize it, trying to distill it all, put it all together. What I do is I have them come through an assessment, which basically helps me understand where they are, where they want to go, obstacles in between. This is where I got the brand doctor name from.
Oh, yeah.
Right. It's just like going to the doctor's office and them basically trying to diagnose what's wrong with you. Once we figure that out, there's options, right? Mm-hmm. One may not be with me. I may tell you to go somewhere else. One option may be brand accelerator program's perfect for you. Let's enroll, right? Here's what it takes to get into that program, right? But when people walk out of that clarity session, that's another word for it. They are a lot more focused on what needs to be done versus what they want done. And that's what's going to get them to the next level.
It's beautiful, brother. And when do we get to hear, or can you at least share the industry that you're going into that you're like hush hush about?
No, I can't.
Not yet. Talk about like real estate or precious metals.
not yet. But I promise you, when the time is right, you will know.
We're looking forward to it, man. Let me be the first person from the audience to say thank you for your time. Thank you for being vulnerable, and there's courage in that vulnerability. Thank you for being you. Enjoyed your energy and your wisdom. And how can people find more about you or what you're working on?
Yeah, so the best place to go is my website. It's Unique Designs with a Z at the end, not an S, .net. And I encourage you to watch that masterclass. It's 100% free. It's about 22 minutes long. It's going to tell you what the top 5% of entrepreneurs are doing to scale to that 7-figure mark and what they're not doing, and have you cross-reference that on your own. Then I also give you some strategies along the way to help sort of get you in the right direction, which all points back to that assessment, of course. Then you have access to my YouTube and Instagram and podcast, tons of free resources there for you to access to help you level up your brand game.
Love it, brother. Well, thank you so much for you. And thank you. I'm excited to see where our journey leads and what the road has in store for us, man. But you have a badass day and we'll catch up soon, man.
Thanks, brother. Take care.